and welcome back to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your three hosts. We have Mr. Elmer Floyd, Mr. Ted Moan, and myself, Tisha S. Waddell, and we are here for the gritty in the city and the word on the curb. Good morning, guys.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Good morning.
Now, I have two announcements, two housekeeping announcements that Mr. Floyd wanted me to make, and one that he probably has no idea was going to be made. But we've got our Cumberland County Democratic Party officer slate that has not slate, but it's called a slate at this point once they're in
They're
position?
officers.
Okay, so these are the officers. We've got Derek Montgomery as the chair, Erica Burns as the first vice chair, Caroline Gregory as the second vice chair, Jamal Doran, third vice chair. I remember him from Kirk. Crystal Edmonds, the secretary, Patricia Randall, the treasurer. And so those Democrat Party are your new officers. Mr. Floyd, as our resident Democrat, what say you?
Well, we're just waiting to see what's the vision and the message for the
Okay.
midterm election.
How does that usually get pushed out? Are we going to get a press release or like what will usually happen?
From the, are you speaking of from the state level or from the local?
In terms of what their vision is going to be, how are we going to find out what the direction is going to be?
Well, as best I can say, teachers, but for you and Ted and myself to keep our hand crossed.
Fair enough.
Fair.
Fair enough.
We
We
really
have a
don't know.
packed, we really have no idea. We have a packed show today, you guys. We're talking city budget, Leandro case, county dollars from the Recovery Act, all these bills that have been floated in Raleigh by the House. And then we just went over that Democrat slate. So we've got a lot to talk about. But before we get started with any of that, there is something super important going on right now that we would be absolutely irresponsible if we did not acknowledge. And so I just want to say to everybody that today is Mr. Floyd's birthday. Happy birthday, Mr.
Hi, happy
Floyd.
birthday.
The show. I'm glad.
You can thank your lovely daughter for reminding us via Facebook that today is a holiday. We appreciate being able to celebrate you, and we're gonna move right along because you look so enthucause about about this
Yeah,
acknowledgement. But
I don't
we
know
love
why
you,
she
and we
does
couldn't let
things
the day
like that.
pass because she
I really
loves
don't.
you. She loves you. Let's jump right in and talk about this budget because you guys, we've been really persistent in having conversations about what this bond that was passed by the voters means. Like we have really been drilling this home. To really, I really want to play a clip, but I'm gonna just put it up on our Facebook page because I'm not savvy enough to that works just yet. But let me say this: I listened to. I know you did. There's a lot of Mr. Flood. What do you call it when you say scrambling? What are they? What does it seem like they're doing?
Scrambling eggs.
Scrambling the eggs. Now, to begin with, we heard right out the gate. Remember that we were speculating, and I think I'm not. Listen, I'm not 100% sure, but I think we broke it here when we talked about PWC and the city potentially having to repay those dollars
Mm-hmm.
because I
Yep.
had got intel and
Yep.
we started that conversation. So it has been confirmed that the Public Works Commission is requiring repayment of the $4 million that the city borrowed during the state of emergency. And again, Ted, thank you for pointing out on your page that I was the lone council member who said, "Hey, y'all, let's not borrow this money." So
Yep.
now the how that pastor say come home to roost because PwC back. Now, Ted, when you saw the repayment, how they were breaking it up, what were they saying? What did PwC say?
I believe they wanted it in two payments over 6 months or something. But
PwC said y'all got 6 months. That's right. We want our money
yeah,
back in 6 months.
yeah,
Wait a
and
minute.
then
Yeah, the mayor said, the mayor indicated we're gonna have to come to Jesus meeting with PwC and
hmm
hoping that we can work out something with PwC. But not to cut you and Ted out. Now don't forget that PwC has $74 million filter system that they got to install, and
yeah,
they have $12 million a year to upkeep the system. So let's have this come to Jesus meeting. And we're gonna pray because there's a lot of money gonna have to be spent, and I can't give you money when I'm already have a vision of being about $84 million in debt.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And PwC has increased. And let's talk about, because I think because program, Mr. Floyd and Ted, tell us about listeners about what this pilot means, because they threw out the word pilot a lot in the meeting when they were talking about this. What does that mean?
Pilot is a acronym for payment in lieu of taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of PwC paying property tax on all of their buildings, all of their real property, equipment, vehicles, it's a percentage of the electrical net asset every year.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's about 12 million a year that PwC city. I think it's either quarterly. I don't think it's monthly. Um, and it during the meeting Tuesday night, the one financial analyst says the pilot or payment in lieu of taxes goes up roughly half a million. And
Mm-hmm.
so as they raise their rates, their electrical net asset will increase a little bit more. And so potentially, instead of $500,000 increase every year, maybe it's 600,000.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different ways that PwC can withhold pilot payments, or a portion of pilot payments to recoup their $4 million from the city. That way, the city won't just cut them a check. PwC
Right.
could potentially just lower the uh, the
The
annual
pilot.
pilot until the
But
four
let's talk
million.
about that. Let's talk about that though, because that requires patience. And Mr. Floyd just pointed out that PwC is looking at $84 million worth of debt. So are they going to be willing? Because I think what we heard was if they just level out the pilot and leave it where it is and don't accept anything over that baseline until this debt is repaid, that they're looking at about 8 years for the debt to be repaid. Mr. Floyd, how much of a reality do you think it is that PwC will permit the city of Fayetteville to take 8 years to repay $2 million?
Well, I think that with what PwC had to do and what we did when we rewrote the PwC charter, Ted and G, the city of Fayetteville was using PwC as a cash cow.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at a set amount of money that would be transferred to the city each year. So
Mm-hmm.
the city would actually know. So when you're looking at me now, over just finding out that I'm gonna have the 74 plus 12, I got to start planning now because the system, my understanding, it had to be up within 2 years. So PwC is already having that rate increase, and on top of the $84 million that somewhere in that neighborhood that they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to spend. Now I need to have some money plus my reserve to operate. And what PwC, we tried to get PwC to have 1 year reserve. PwC indicated that we could operate better on a 6 month reserve,
Right.
which when when we drafted the bill, I really didn't like the 6 months. I thought it would be best that they have a 12-month reserve. So now
Absolutely.
it's more pressure on PwC because they only have a 6 month reserve, where in the city have the 12 months, and most entities have 12 months.
Absolutely. Sitting in this meeting and super familiar to us. And the mayor brings up the fact that conversations with PwC about take it from 6 months to potentially a 2 year schedule. So being able to repay half in 2023 and half in 2024, because he feels like that will be less of a hit on it will be less critical to their budget. He did indicate that this is still in negotiations,
Mm-hmm.
and that they would be really working through this to discuss some different options with PwC. So this is going to be something to watch, because if PwC takes a hard line with this, we are going to see the city of Fayetteville scrambling to figure out how to patch a budget that is already beginning to hemorrhage.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, and that was I forget the guy's name because I never met him, the financial guy.
mhm,
His presentation, PwC was right there. I could try to share that slide if you want me
Oh,
to.
absolutely. If you'll put those slides up, that would be
Okay.
our listeners can kind of track along with what we're talking about. Now, we
Okay.
did, and Mr. Flake, you brought this up at some point in this conversation. We were talking about the fund balance, right? And so, as this conversation is taking place in this special meeting, and we're going to post the link so that if you want to go and listen to this special meeting, you can do that. We think it's terribly essential for you to make sure you're taking this information in. Bottom line. So when we're this meeting take, we are hearing begin to discuss the particular and Mr. Floyd, you asked me earlier, what tell the people what's the fund balance. So the fund balance is
Well, the
like the
fund,
savings account. Go ahead.
yeah, which basically is a reserve. The state requires most government entities to have 8%. The council mentioned that their goal is 10%, but really
Mm-hmm.
12%
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
there. So that gives them a little 2% gap in order to do some creative projects.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it, and we talked about it on the program, what the county was going to do 2 years from now. And the county had talked about this 10 to 15 years ago. So that's added on top of the $97 million,
That's right.
the $4 million that PWC, and if I can teach to throw in there, now you want to look at charging people on fast $4.
So this was,
And
oh my gosh, Mr.
Oh,
Floyd, I'm so glad you brought that up.
that's $4
yeah.
now. I mean,
And
come
we're
on now,
coming
you
off
talking
of
about
it
a
being
person.
free to ride the bus. Like we're coming, remember when COVID started, y'all? Okay, I got excited when you said that because the the yes. So listen, Mr. Floyd, can you imagine, Ted, when has transit ever been self-sufficient?
Never, never. It's always been
Never.
no,
And for
never.
the listening audience, what that means is when we say self sufficient, transit, which is your bus system here in Fayetteville, has always required support from from the budget, from the general budget, and from like the grants and the things that it brings in. It has never ever been self sufficient. The conversation in the budget meeting on Monday was that in order to make up what is going to be a $10 million budgetary shortfall annually. Kathy asked this question. She said, "Is this for the next 3 years?" And the budget people at the city said, "No, this is forever. We need to
Mhm.
make up $10 million forever." And they are proposing to increase transit in order to be able to make it self sufficient, which means it is going from free to ride the bus to possibly how much, Mr. Floyd?
$4. Now
Per
remind
ride.
you, it's not so bad the $4, but now you want those same persons to have some form of a card that gonna that it can be electronically used, so they don't have to use the cash box. Now
Right.
you're asking a person who is riding public transit to come up. I'm gonna use the word debit card. A transportation card that they got to buy somewhere. In order to ride the bus. So now you're adding another step to a person. Now remind you now, he or she is riding public transit, not driving to work. So he gonna have to find some place to buy this card to make it electronically, so it can be easy for them to access. I mean, to use public transit. I mean,
Absolutely. And that's huge. That's huge, especially and think about this. Think about when we talk about these bus routes. And time to get from point A to point B to your destination.
Mm-hmm.
If you New York or Washington D.C., public transit is have a car, but you still take public transportation because parking is difficult. Because it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be quicker than going in traffic. That's one thing. But we're talking about Fayetteville, which is sprawled out. Like when they
Mm-hmm.
developed our city, they did not develop in a concentrated fashion. They developed very sprawled, very rural in the thinking process. And now you want to take this and then say that this population, and so here's the differentiation. In the first group of people who are taking public transportation because they want to avoid traffic or because they don't want a parking, but they own a car, different. level. And Mr. Floyd, you were
Mhm.
touching on this without saying it. That's a different income level. When you talk about the people who take public transportation in the city of Fayetteville, they are not taking it because they want to avoid a parking nightmare. They're not taking it because traffic is bumper to bumper and getting on the bus is going to get them to where they want to go quicker. They're taking it because it is their only option.
Mhm.
It is their
Yep.
only alternative. They do not have a car. Wherever they have to go is too far to walk. That's why they're on the bus, which means their financial situation is much different. So we're going to tax these people because this is a tax. When we talk about fee increases, Mr. Floyd, you say time.
A fee increase is the simple word as tax increase.
It's a
Yes.
tax. So we're taxing
I
the
mean, how
poor
you look at it,
again.
that's what it is.
Right. Right.
You know,
So I
but
thought that was huge.
I mean, but government now have gotten word uses there. But we who know, just like the water drainage, it's a tax
It's a
increase. I
tax.
don't care how you look at it. I know that's one of your pet projects, but it is a tax
It's a
increase.
tax.
You know, so
And they're taxing the poor again, Mr. Floyd, because parks and rec fees.
Yeah.
Listen, and I'm not saying this to be uppity or anything like that. My kids did parks and rec sports at one point, but park and rec sports are typically for the kids whose parents cannot afford to put them in like travel ball, or or they don't, at their school they don't have a program where they can put them in. That's again the population who has fewer resources than the people who have more resources. So we're going to go up on the parks and rec fees, which, and listen, I'm not saying these are bad things to do, but I'm saying let's be honest about what it is.
but teach
And
when
this
you
is
look
all
at
to make up. Go ahead, Floyd, Miss Floyd.
when you look at these things, you're looking at a rate increase with the population that may not use November opportunity to address their concerns.
Interesting you say that. Very interesting you say that because as this conversation was going on, and Ted, I really am going to lean on you in this because you and I have worked with the city manager before.
Yep.
As this conversation was playing out, one of the things that I heard was almost a desperation from the city manager Doug Hewitt for the council members to continue to move forward with this 97 million, the implementation of this $97 million bond. Because one of the things that staff said was just because the people authorized the bond doesn't mean you have to execute the bond.
No. Yeah. That's true. You're right.
So we don't have to be on the hook for these expensive dollars. And even Mitch said we probably need to go ahead and implement this tax increase right now so we can start collecting money. So that
Yep.
by the time we go to borrow the money, and he said this, it's gonna cost more to get the money. He said it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So y'all,
They
go ahead,
gotta.
Ted.
Yeah. They have to. I forget which council member asked for what's the property tax for the 97 million,
I think
because
that was DJ Hare.
yeah, because they have to put it in this year's budget. They have to put it in
Right.
this year's budget, just like we did with the Parks and Rec. Put it in the budget. It started to accumulate money, and then you could go out and do the design work, hire the contract for bid. But if you don't have the money in the bank, you're not supposed to use the general fund for that. Those are almost like enterprise funds. They can only be used for what the voters voted to use them for.
Right.
And but it did. I mean, um, was pleading to please keep going. But some of the council members may not want to take the political hit
And that's
for
what it's
raising
giving
the
me the
tax,
vibe of. That's the
because
feeling I'm getting, Ted.
yeah, because this is just the first tax increase. Once in 2 years, when ad valorem fully pushes in, it's like a 12 deficit. And that's about the same time that the county will do a countywide property reevaluation.
Hmm.
And so there was discussion of not doing a revenue neutral, but just let you
Explain
know,
what that is, Ted. Mr. Floyd and Ted, talk about that a little bit because I think people need to understand what revenue neutral means.
I could start and then let Mr. Floyd. So when the county does a countywide reevaluation on all the real property, um, businesses, single family homes, apartments, all that. Um, Typically, the values for most have gone up. The values of those properties. Now, some have gone down. Okay, because but anyway, so what you do is you anticipate what the new revenue would be for the increased property tax, or property values, and then you lower the tax rate so people like the three of us would very close to what we're paying right now since the reevaluation in 2017. But we, because of the housing market, and we've seen it in Fayetteville. There, some estimates are 10. Now, some properties go up 20, 30, 40%. Some go up 5%. So they have to find that balance. And so one of the discussions, it'll be a future council, not this council.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's there in 2025, I believe it is. Yeah, 2025. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they are going to have to make the decision um, of whether to adopt a revenue neutral, or just people just start paying more to try to close that gap in the sales tax distribution that the county is going to go full uh, full effect in 2025.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now,
Mr. Floyd?
did I do that?
As they said, when we had the last tax evaluation, the only property that not in just in generic was the Jack Britt area. Everyone else's property went down, but the tax level remained the same. You still pay the same amount of tax for your property, but your property value really went down a whole lot. For
Hmm.
instance, 100,000, 125,000, $140,000 house went down to 89,000,
Whew.
but you still pay the same property tax.
Pretty much mine. Yeah, mine pretty much the same. What's in a couple dollars, but
Mm.
Was it increased or lowered?
I'd have
But
to go back because there
okay,
was
but ours
also,
remained the same.
yeah, because at the same time we did increase stormwater fees, solid waste fees, and that all goes onto the tax bill every year also. So I think it was a combination of the increases in the fees, which is a tax, like you said, and the reevaluation. But I checked my neighborhood in the last couple of years, and it's just a middle class neighborhood. And the last couple of years, some of the homes were selling 30, 40,000, $50,000 more than what they were valued at in 2017 with the
Mm-hmm.
last countywide revaluation. So it's pretty much across, you know,
But Ted, but if you look at it from the standpoint of view, the storm drainage and all the other was an addition to. So you
mhm,
still pay the same tax, but you had an increase of X dollars because of storm water drainage and these other things.
that's
So
true.
we
Yeah.
pay more in taxes. So this is something that good leadership look at as it look towards the future, and that's why you have a council manager form of government, when that the manager through his staff will make those suggestions and recommendations to the city council to see if this is the direction in which the council want to go in, because he can express to based on his team whether or not we're going to have a no growth budget or a 1 to 2% budget growth or something else. But what I
Mm-hmm.
saw the other night was two or three eggs being scrambled, and I
Absolutely.
just decided that I will bypass eggs that night.
And guys, I want to say this. As I was listening, I recognized whoever that was giving the presentation to the council. They were very clear and concise, and they really laid it on the table. Because Ted, if you'll go back to that slide that we were just at, the one that
Okay,
had the
doing that
I
right
want to
now.
okay, because I want to show you guys something. And before I show you guys what I want to show you, I want to go back, Mr. Floyd, to what you said about this is a hit on the people who didn't show up at the polls. And let me tell you why that's critical. In Doug Hewitt's speech that he gave to the council, this is how he was trying to encourage to move forward with initiatives. He highlighted the fact that the citizens that voted, and so they were asking, and this is he said it, they asked you, race. And then he turned around, the citizens affirmed the fact that they did a good job by protecting you, not changing the composition of the council. So when we are out and speaking to citizens and explaining the importance of voting, when we're speaking to them and explaining to them the importance of understanding the implication of these bonds and understanding how later these things can be used to support initiatives that are completely contradictory to this, Mr. Beautiful. Because now the thinking is that the citizens of the city asked for it. They asked for it, so stick it to them. You understand what I'm saying? So now when we look at this list, staff was extremely brilliant in how they presented this because they said, here's how we're going to have to go about this. Employer of choice, which is cost us money. We're going to
Mhm.
lose sales tax. We're going to lose tax revenue, which is going to cost money. PWC back, which is going to cost the county's ad valorem election cost to cost us money. If we, it's going to cost us money. The only way government is if we make more money. Mr. Floyd, how does a government make money?
Through creative projects, just like you and
And,
your storm drainers.
and Ted, what's
Like
that? What's
you and
that
your
three letter?
storm
What's that
drainers.
3 letter word, y'all? What's the 3 letter word? How do they make money?
Uh,
Tax, tax,
Tax.
tax.
Tax. So when you look at
That
that, Mr. Floyd, you called it solid waste rates. They said we're going to have to increase those solid waste rates.
increase.
That's a tax.
Now,
Stormwater rates.
hold on 1 minute there, T. Now, they wasn't sure of when they raised the solid rate.
I can tell
But
you they did it every single year since I've been on council. The first
but
year
they
was a
wasn't
solid waste
sure
fee,
whether or not they did one in the interim.
and it was
You
Uh,
know,
huge.
way
Those
discussion.
those solid waste increases were huge, and I remember because that's why I didn't vote for the budget. And you can go back and you can look at the Fayetteville Observer and Google it because I said it. I said y'all don't want to raise taxes, but you want to increase fees, and I said it's the same thing.
Well, that's the bug words, T. We increase park and rec. We look at bus, we look at environmental and 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 other things instead of looking at. But see, somewhere down the line in the coming years, prepare yourself for a property tax increase. It's
Oh,
coming.
for sure. I
It's
think
coming.
it's going to come. I think it's going to be included in this budget. If this
But
council
let me ask y'all
decides
one
to move
question.
forward, go ahead.
Let me ask y'all one question. On your slide, you had employee of choice. What was that?
Yes.
I
Yes.
think it's employment of choice.
Hmm.
yes,
Uh, is that not retention?
Well, it
yeah,
is retention.
yeah. Mr.
Okay,
Hewitt
but
was talking about a 3, 4, 5% employee brought up though. PwC talking about 10%, but we're not PwC. But what I got on the
Well, but
slide right,
Hewitt is losing his staff. Think about this, y'all. How many of the upper level employees have we saw? We saw the guy from I can't think of his name right now. It's escaping me from the Human Relations Commission. He
Dr.
left and
Wade.
went to the
Anthony
county.
Wade.
Dr. Wade went to the county. We saw his assistant city managers leaving. We saw that we saw all these people up and go over to the county, and there has to be some reason for that.
Teach as you go, as you move. Let me give you something. I was just flipping channels the other day, and a little city 1 mile from here said that they were going to raise their law enforcement salary to $60,000. Now it's straight up I-95. and it's a pit stop.
Right up the road.
It's a pit stop for as for a police officer to go from 40 to 60.
And you're going to have less to contend with because you've got a much smaller population.
And I
Hmm.
got a straight shot to work. I just had to drive 55 minutes to an hour and make $20,000 more a
More.
year.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'd say it's worth it. I'd say it's worth it. Ted, go ahead. What do you want to tell us about that? I'm gonna hit one more thing after you tell us this, Ted, and then I'll be done with this budget conversation. Go ahead, Ted.
Oh, let me just hit share one more time.
Okay.
So I had done this last year, and what it shows, the year on the left, starting in 2016, solid waste was $44. The
Hmm.
next year, we jumped it up by $64 to 108. Then we jumped it up another $82 to 190. And then we didn't do anything in 2020. Well, I wasn't there in 2020. Uh, well, 35.
It went up.
Went up
Yeah, it
to
went up
two. Yeah.
$35.
And now these last two budgets, there's nothing. In the middle was how we increased over the years. Well,
Stormwater.
stormwater. Um, it went up, $6 one year, and 17, 18 went up another $21, and now it's been flat at $27. Or no, it went up $27. Yeah, so it's now up to $72 a year. Uh, Solid waste is 225 a year, and that goes right on your tax bill. So what Mr. Hewitt was saying the other night is they're looking at these fees going up again,
Hmm.
trying to make the solid waste, it's an enterprise fund now, because it's a separate tax or fee. And if I remember, we transfer just about $2 million from the general fund every
To
year to solid
stormwater.
waste. Yeah, and stormwater, uh,
Hmm.
and solid waste. It's not self sufficient. I think last year was just under $2 million, and I'm going off of memory.
Hmm.
So they're trying to shift that $2 million from fund balance to the property owners who have our service, our solid waste department. So
So
that
Ted,
would.
leave that slide up for just a second because I think people should look at this where you see combined increase because here's where they'll play you if you're not paying attention.
Right.
So when they're having the conversation about property taxes being increased, we keep hearing the number 4%. We keep hearing 4%. So on a
Right.
400,000 on $100,000 house, that's what, $400?
Uh,
I mean
for,
$40, $40.
40. Yeah, yeah.
That's $40. Okay, that seems insignificant. However, if you look at from 2016 to 2022, property taxes have increased $208 before you
Mhm.
even touch the property tax rate.
Correct.
Because this all is going, homeowners, property owners are paying this. And that's not to even mention, and Kathy brought this up, and she never fails to remember business owners. Because this
Yep.
is not even the cost to a commercial business. It's
Mm-mm.
incrementally higher if you own a business. So let's let's not play. The last point I want to make, and Mr. Floyd, I think you probably have something on the tip of your tongue. The last point I want to make is that staff, we're either going to do this, significantly start cutting programs. And some of
Mm-hmm.
the programs they talked about, the New Year's Eve celebration, which is a new one, Juneteenth, which is a new one, the 4th of July celebration. So we're either going to see programs cut because they, or we're going to see some combination of the two. If they, with this bond, the only hope that this not incrementally overtaxing its where is getting ready to experience hyperinflation. The only hope they have is to hold off on executing these $97 million bonds. Mr. Floyd, what do you got?
But Tish, back when you and Ted was a little bit younger, we used to have a beautiful garbage truck that come down our street. We had a driver and two persons loading the trash into the back of the truck.
Mhm.
We have moved from that, Ted and Tish. We have moved for that. Now we have one truck with a driver with an arm that'll stand out and pick the trash up and throw it into a truck. So we have went down. We used to have about 94 trash per person. They don't change the name. So now we are getting more efficient, but we are still and continue to raise costs. I know. I mean, the truck itself. I know it costs money, but we got the truck has an arm that reaches out to every house and pick the trash up. So where's the money, as a person said, and zip code 301? Where's the money going?
Well,
Are
if
we
you
spending it wisely? What I'm saying.
if you go down, was it Eastern Boulevard, Business 95, down there downtown where their fleet maintenance yard is, on any given day, look at how many of those green trash trucks are
Are
sitting
out
in
of
maintenance,
service.
out of
Hmm.
service, waiting for parts or something. Because I've had many times where the city had to rent a truck, and a white
Yep.
truck comes through my neighborhood and picks up my trash. So
And we
I
hired a
think
company to do the maintenance, and we ended up having some legal issues with that company. There was some mismanagement of funding. So nobody talks about where the money's hemorrhaging at. That's not,
that was,
Mr. Floyd,
But
you're asking a
PwC
great
did.
question.
I'm okay. PwC said we charge you for the work that we are
But
providing.
then but then the city of Fayetteville was like, "Well, we're done."
Yeah, I mean, you don't expect for a
it's
man
it
or a
says
person
the
to
computer
operate up
stopped
under.
recording.
Yeah, I see that, Ted. So I think what it's asking you to do is to, if it says, you see what it says.
Yeah, but my
So
internet.
go out and come back in. We'll
Okay,
wait for you. As a matter of
okay,
fact, we'll take a break. Mr. Floyd, you go with us taking a break?
Yes.
We'll take a break. Okay. We got a technical difficulty. Let's fix it. We'll be right back.
okay.
Are you looking for a real estate agent who knows the Fayetteville community inside and out? Look no further, as your hometown girl LaTanya has extensive experience of our area and experience in its real estate market. LaTanya delivers results. At LMR Realty Group, we all understand that buying or selling a home can be a stressful experience. When you partner with us, you control the decisions while LMR Realty Group guides the process, and together we'll work from contract to close with ease. Whether you're a first-time buyer, downsizing, or expanding your investment portfolio, LMR Realty Group has got you covered. As a bonus, if you call and go under contract by March 31st, LMR Realty Group can cover up to $400 for a home warranty on a resale property with all appliances included. Some exclusions apply. Don't wait. Call 910-574-8225 or visit ELLIMARRealtyGroup.com to get you started. Let's make your dream home a reality with LMR Realty Group.
Okay. I think we should have, yeah, we've got Ted back. Good deal. So, welcome back to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your three hosts, Mr. Elmer Floyd, Mr. Ted Moan, and myself. We are talking budget. We're almost wrapping this up. If you missed it, go back and catch this budget conversation. If you live in the city of Fayetteville, I, I want to give you guys a virtual high five, Mr. Floyd and Ted, because you all break the news before anybody else gets it. And I think we are probably one of the most underrated podcasts in the city of Fayetteville because we are watching what matters for the people and bringing information to make sure the people understand. So we need for the people to like, share, and subscribe. Send out these YouTube links so that folks can begin to understand what's happening in their city government. Mr. Floyd, you were finishing up telling us about Ted was talking about where that money was going with solid waste, but you were wrapping up that budget conversation and just telling us your thoughts. So I want to pick right back up there.
No, I just let Ted so we can move forward. But I think
Okay.
that people have to understand one thing, that when they say a service, uh, whatever, then they're just simply raising your taxes in a unique way without raising your property tax and saying property tax is still a tax.
Absolutely. Ted, do you have anything before we move on and talk about this 15 to 10 to $15 million Recovery Act money for from the county?
No, no. You know, I think this next couple months is going to be very interesting. Well, we really need to watch our city council meetings. Their small group budget meetings are technically open to the public, but they don't publish when they're meeting. You really got to watch when they have their budget workshops, which are
Mm-hmm.
going to be public to and you could go to the city webpage. They'll tell you when they're going to have them. So um, it's going to be interesting this year and next year and 2025.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mr. Floyd, walk us through what's going on with the county and this 10 to $15 million.
Well, to my understanding from the America Recovery Act, the county got $15 million to help them with their water problem. And talking
Mm-hmm.
with Representative Lucas, he mentioned that there is a proposal, that there is a bill to provide an additional $10 million to help the county with its water problem. But back when you and Ted was young again, money was plentiful. Sampson County, Robertson County, and Harnett County took this money. But Cumberland County wanted to remain a tobacco road state. They did not. So all the other counties got the money. Now they have county and water. I mean, they have county water.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for the county to do it now, it's about $60 million. And the relationship with PWC and the county, PWC is saying, what, we can't see any benefit from extending
Hmm.
our water line all the way to the Robertson County line, as an
Mm-hmm.
example. There's not enough profit
Right.
for us. So that means that the county got to pay it alone when they could have done it much easier during the earlier days. So
Mm-hmm.
it's again vision with our person that we elect as officers, and it behooves us to have an understanding of the process. So going forward, and you just mentioned it, budget must be in place by July 1.
Hmm.
We're talking about less than what, 60 days, 65 days. So there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lot of talk about going at the school board, the county commissioner, and the city of Fayetteville. The other local entities within the county are going to be discussing budget. Now they have until the last of July to have a budget in place, or you may be like Spring Lake.
Right. And in their budget, one of the slides the other night, they put June 12th, the first televised meeting in June to approve their budget. But then that's the same day they're all flying back from the All American City Award. So who knows what's going to happen?
Did they get
So
the award,
listen,
Ted? Were they award?
No, no, they were one of 20 cities that got the
Okay.
invitation, and now they have to compete.
Okay.
And then 10 will be awarded All American City status.
Okay. Well,
does it bring any financial benefit to you?
I mean, I was on council when they went the last time. They did very good, but okay, yeah, I didn't see any
Did
finance.
it bring any mega sites back?
No, no,
Okay,
no, no, no.
I was just asking. I was just curious. Now, Tisha, and before we move on, this is my last question, and not last question, but you mentioned to me about your funding for the city travel. The budget there was $30 million to go to Washington D.C. So that looked like everyone had about $4,000 for expenditure. So that means they can't go anyplace else. But I hear Ted
uh,
saying they're coming back from the
n-
All American City.
I think typically with the council's travel, their budget will cover the two trips that the council is slated to take Will they take one trip? Do they take two trips annually? Is it every November? It's one trip annually. So it covers that. And then there's usually a little bit left over if there's
Hmm.
somewhere else that you want to go or something else you want to do. But I don't know
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
with inflation, I don't
That's
know
four
how that's
thousand
working
dollars
now.
weighted.
Right. And when I was on council, you get $4,000 a year for a 2-year term for a total of $8,000. So in theory, I could use nothing in my first year, but then I'd have available to me a total of 8,000 in the second year. And I know
Mm-hmm.
there was one time I was on council, one of the council members, and this was several years ago, didn't have enough money. I said, well, take it out of my travel fund
Yeah,
because I'm
they
not
let you
going.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
That's still a little bit confusing, but okay, T, we move on.
it
Move on. Because it
is.
doesn't
It
add
is.
up. It just
You you
doesn't
you,
add up.
you wanted to hit the Leandro real quick also.
Absolutely.
So
Mr. Floyd?
Now,
Leand,
that's the case that's been hanging around for some 30 years.
yeah, yep,
And this time it's the judge, it was signed to Judge Angus
yes.
to be the judge, and he sided with the low wealth schools. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
state should contribute that $667 million. But on this side of the General Assembly, the General uh, we're the only one that are able to disperse funds. That's based on the Constitution. So,
Right.
you know, we don't have to because you can't determine the funding process. We determine that. So it'll
Right.
be
And
interesting to seeing where that moved to.
right. And I read Judge Ammon's order. It's like 12 pages, came out
Mm-hmm.
yeah, last Friday.
Mhm.
And in there, he did not direct the General Assembly or the the school, well, whoever has that money. But he just said, yes, there is a shortage of that 667 million or 77 million, whatever it is. But he did not order the transfer to the different uh, departments or pots of money that were being adjudicated. So
Because many state agency was afraid because they can't. Office Budget and Management is the one that dispersed the money,
okay,
and they was afraid that if I dispersed the money without the approval of the General Assembly, then I may be in a high-rise facility. Okay,
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so
behind
they
bars.
said, now,
Right.
you follow me, because I could be jailed
Mm-hmm.
because spending money
Mm-hmm.
that was not been authorized for me to spend. And so, you know, it it really helps the staff and prevent the staff from making a decision, making an order, following an order from the court, and not following the direction of the appropriation of the General Assembly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Now
we'll
let me
see
ask
what
a
happens.
question. Let me ask a question, and I don't mean this in jest. I mean this with all sincerity. We're seeing the impact of low performance in some of our public schools as we're looking at behavior, right? So I know y'all saw this what happened in Rocky Mount with this substitute teacher and what has been happening actually across the country with some substitute teachers where they're becoming involved in physical altercations with their students. So how does this all how does this all relate? Like how does funding and underperformance relate to these behavior issues as you all see it?
Well, Tish, if I may, if you talk to different persons, you
Mhm.
know that that there's three funding sources in education: K-12, community college, and 4-year college. And so we're talking about a budget of close to $30 billion. Some would say 55%. Some would say 58% of that dollar
Mhm.
goes towards education. Okay. And
Mhm.
then they say that the teachers are at just below the middle range of the national salary. And then you imposing all of these duties and responsibilities onto the teacher. and the teachers said that you forgot to include combat pay as part of my instruction duties. Remind you now,
Mm-hmm.
combat pay now.
Mm.
Ed, you've been in the military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they said that they need that pay in order to go in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And, and many are saying that I might as well go out here in the private sector because I'm spending $1,500 of my money per year to help these students reach the set or standard goals that has been set because we don't have the material in the classroom in order to do it. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
salary, so what that does, teachers, that leaves a lot of schools with a lot of vacancies.
Yeah.
So they bring in subs in order to do that. And just in this community, the student jumped on the wrong chick.
That's right. And substitute teachers, I used to be a substitute teacher. They have a completely different mentality than the teacher because a substitute teacher recognizes I'm just here for today. And this is not really my career. This is just my $90 for today because I think that's what they pay you when you go through the class. It's like $90 a day. And the substitutes and this point on TikTok, they said, but beyond the little screen that they do on the substitute, you don't really know who you're getting on Wednesday to fill in for your class. And they got the right one that day. Because when
Mm.
That
that
thing,
girl put her hands
you're right. You're
right,
right. Yeah.
but we're seeing in other places, Mr. Floyd, substitutes are being knocked unconscious. And that says to somebody like me, what am I going in this classroom for? Why would I deal with that? Why do
But
I
there's a
want to
love,
be
teacher. Teach. There's a love. I mean, educators
a teacher
demonstrate
for a
and
teacher
show love. That's
for a
why they're there.
teacher for a
That's why
teacher?
they're there because they love what they're doing.
The
You
teachers
know,
so
they love what they're doing.
give them a couple extra dollars. j- Extra dollars. Most substitutes are not in the classroom because of a love for teaching. Because the substitute goes in the classroom and they usually have some handouts and they give those handouts and they sit and sometimes they play it on their cell phone. They're just there to keep the peace. They're not there to instruct. They're just there to keep order in the class. And we are seeing more and more that substitute teachers are saying, no, I'm good. I can make $90 a day doing something else. I'm good.
And if you look at Cumberland County, I mean, we only have what, two charter schools, but we have multiple um, uh, religious type schools. You know,
Mm-hmm.
different religions. I think 10 or 12 in Cumberland County. They typically have smaller class sizes. They typically pay more because they're privately funded, you know, per se. So there's many times I've heard that Cumberland County teachers will move to either the charter or the independent, church schools.
Mm-hmm.
I know up here on Hokupa Road, Pastor McLaughlin, he has a great church school, you know, at his church.
Mm-hmm.
We've had his basketball team come to city council because they won the national championship. I think that could be part of the reason why some of the teachers opt out of public school and go to these charter or these private schools, like we have here in Cumberland County. But
So
yes,
let's talk about let's because Mr. Floyd, this is some good stuff on the table, and I don't want people to be bamboozled when we talk about bills being passed, because maybe who knows, maybe we'll see a bill that because both of them were charged. I think y'all said both of them have been charged with assault. So we're
that's what
gonna
I
have
read.
to see, yeah, we're gonna have to see something coming out that gives a guarantee to an adult that if they're in the classroom with somebody that's standing eye to eye with them and this person puts their hands on them, I got to be able to protect myself in this classroom. I cannot just let these adult sized teenagers be whooping on me. So, Mr. Floyd, legislation, what's happening in the House? Because you
I
told me a
believe
bunch of bills.
I believe that you may, in this particular case, you may see something to address this particular situation. But
Mm-hmm.
as I talked with Ted, I didn't talk with you about this yesterday. But there was about 100 plus bills, Ted, close to 150 bills introduced on Wednesday.
Oh my,
Is that good news, Mr. Floyd?
they ran out of time.
I mean, you know, it's good, but their livelihood of meeting May the 4th is very slim. And May 4th is the crossover date to get it
Okay.
here in the Senate.
If it
And
is
if
not
it
heard
goes
by
to the
May 4th,
Senate,
what happens to it?
that's it. Well, you and Ted, y'all can wear your black ribbons and robes and those type and pay your respect to the deceased.
It just dies.
It just
It
died.
dies because it won't be crossover, so it can't come up even in the biannual year. And so think about it now. Most of the bills from the House goes over and sits in the rules on the Senate side, and it
Hmm.
may be grabbed out and then passed on to a committee. But what
Hmm.
the House always has asked for is that a bill get two dips, one into a subcommittee, and then rules being the second committee. But if you look at the calendar, you'll see that those committee meets once a week. Once a week now, it may be that those committees may be granted by the speaker to meet more than once a week to get out these bills. So going forward, you will see longer legislative sessions in order to move these bills forward. You may see
Hmm.
120 bills in a day. That
Hmm.
means they're gonna recess, you know. And some bills
Hmm.
that has dollars is gonna have to get a third reading, which is the third day. If
Okay.
you don't have a dollar reading to it, you can do a bill the second and third reading on the same day. That's
Okay.
that's the way the generally speaking. A dollar.
So what you're saying is that's a lot of work to get done between now and May the 4th.
That's why I asked you and Ted be prepared to wear your black outfit.
Get our black ready. Get our
Yeah,
black together.
yeah, because May 4th is 2 weeks from today.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, so they've got 2 weeks to get all those bills plus several hundred more that have been
Now,
put, and haven't
if
even
it
been
has
heard
a
yet.
D to it, if it has a D to it, it's not likely that it's gonna move forward.
Hmm.
I mean, because as Troy mentioned, an article in the paper, they determine what bills are going to be heard. You know, they determine the seat assignment. They determine the committee assignment. As in the North Carolina Journal, journal that one person said that the governor tells the person which committee he wants them to be on, but the speaker determines what committee he wants you on.
And what I find interesting, and I'm gonna do it for the rest of our local delegation. But last night I started with Senate because there's only one Cumberland County senator,
Hmm.
and Val Applewhite, which I get along with great, whatever. But she was appointed to appropriations on agriculture, natural, and economic resources. They've heard zero bills this year.
And that really, if
Commerce,
you think about Cumberland County, well, I guess if you think about the rural areas, but
yeah,
that's really not very relevant to her
no.
district.
And then commerce and insurance. What I could find so far, they've heard 8 bills, and pensions and retirement and aging, um, 2 bills, but zero have been heard. Yeah, same thing with commerce. 8 bills are sitting there, but they haven't heard any of them yet. And then
Hmm.
state and local government, there's been 12 bills that have been heard in that committee. So um, yeah,
They
it's
are
just
So let me ask.
interesting.
partially, I mean, they're basically what we send over to the Senate. In many instances, the Senate don't even take them up.
So that's normal to see that those bills are there. Okay, yeah, and I'll do the rest. For the 4 House of Representatives, see which committees they were appointed to, and because we know, say there's 20 committees, and really 8 or 10 do 90% of all the work. Because that's where they go. So it'll be interesting to see how our local delegation, um, you, you know, um, what where they were appointed to and what committees. Were they active committees or the ones that they just knew wouldn't get a lot of bills. So I'll try to
Right.
do that research for next week.
Of
Cool
those
beans.
100 plus bills, I think we would co-sponsor primary sponsor on two of those. I think it was 671 and 72.
Okay.
Charles Smith and Francis Jackson was on those two bills of those 100 plus bills.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
and I know.
perfect segue. Go ahead, Mr. Moan.
Yeah. Yeah. Francis, she was put on several committees. I was new when I first looked it all up. I thought, wow, her and Diane Wheatley really were appointed to some, a whole bunch of committees. So not so much everybody else though. But I'll get all that together and we could talk about it.
Perfect. Francis Jackson, Representative Smith, Charles.
Yeah.
Uh, we saw an interesting for the House, and let's talk about how they voted on that. So the piece of legislation dealt with transgenders who are biologically male
Mm-hmm.
participating in women's athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Ted, let's talk about that because you set the internet on fire like you usually do. And I
Well,
mean,
it's
I'll say this: I think while what you said have appeared to be very crass to some people, just as you were very in how you said it, I agreed with what you said. So that's just
cheater,
my two
cheater,
cents.
cheater,
Right.
cheater, half a Peter. Yeah, yeah. But
Let's talk about
um,
that.
yeah. So there's parallel bills in the House and the Senate, and it's called Fairness in Women's Sports Act. And the Senate, they're voting on it today. It went to committees yesterday again, and their bill is for elementary and high school. The House
Hmm.
bill is elementary, high school, and college, and it passed yesterday in the House. Um, and three Democrats voted with the Republicans to pass this bill, and people were they 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 slant what they say. They were saying this is Title IX. If you go back to 1972, it was designed to protect women's sports.
And it
It
was.
was
Hmm.
women play in women's sports, men play in So, but over the years, with all the LGBT, whatever Q, it's been slightly updated. And so the Republicans that sponsored the bill kept saying this is, to protect women and girls, young girls and women. And then many of the Democrat sides, they're very polite, and they ask questions. And they were trying to tie it to the nationwide LGBTQ movement. There's already 21 states that have done a bill similar to this. The original bill sponsor from another state showed up to the committee meetings, but Francis Jackson and Charles Smith voted no. Uh, uh,
They don't
and then
want to restrict transgenders from participating in,
right.
but they don't want to restrict biological males from
That's
participating in women's sports.
right. And there was a lot of discussion of, well, how do you know? And they say, well, a doctor puts it on a birth certificate, and you go by the birth certificate.
Or
You,
you
you,
can take a genetic test and see what your chromosomal makeup
hmm
is. I
Yeah.
mean, because medically, chromosomally, XY is one thing, right? We know this. This is
hmm
not new information.
No, no. And even like when my son played, sports, there at Anchestnut Middle School and Westover, you have to get a physical every year. You know, the doctor goes in there. He puts down male, female, what any medications or this or that or asthma, and so these children on organized sports, not the playground, when you're playing kickball or something, they actually go through a physical by a a
Right.
medical
Medical
doctor,
professional. Right.
and that medical professional says whether they're biologically a male or a female, not what they identify by. And that's what this bill was. It was more about
Right.
biological males. Yeah, so the Senate's supposed to pass it today, and they already have a veto-proof majority, and they just had three Democrats in the House, and
To sign on with
the
them.
the new Republican Cotham, she voted for it also.
Mr. Floyd,
So
how do you feel about all of this?
Well, it's a wait and see game. Uh, this may not answer your question, but sometimes we try to run a different offense in a Bible Belt community.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of churches here. Look at
You know, and
Fayetteville.
and I want to go back to something you said to me when we were kind of preparing for this program. You were talking about how this new Democrat slate wants to really branch into the rural areas. When we were talking, my question immediately was, do they intend to change? Because you can't uh, the ideology of the party as it stands and push that North Carolina.
I think that and what you have to do is know your base. You have to know your base when you're pushing forward an agenda. And one thing that our party, the Democrat Party, wants to do is that we are not being really successful in rural North Carolina. Rural North Carolina is basically red. When you
Mm-hmm.
hovered around Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Charlotte, there's a different population. So you have to know your base when you're moving, forward. So you can do those things, but know your base as you move forward with your
And
agenda.
as Aretha Franklin said, and I just want to say this since I'm the only woman on our podcast, I don't think that either of you identify as women. So I feel confident in saying I'm the only woman on this podcast. And with that being said, it is very demoralizing for biological men to be able to invade spaces that have been protected for me as a woman. Whether it is something that we like to acknowledge regularly or not, men and women are different. We are different. We are different physically, we are different psychologically, we are different. And while there may be some men who like to behave as women, and while there may be some women who like to behave as men, we're still different. And it's okay to be different. And it is okay. We see athletically that when there are genetic differences where cognitive function are concerned, there's a league created to support those genetic differences. If the truth of the matter is what transgender America is saying, is that transgender is bigger than what those of us who are not in that community like to think, then most certainly there should be a supportive network of an athletic association specifically for that demographic to permit fair and equitable play for that demographic. But you cannot ask us to pretend like it is the equivalent of them just coming into the space. And you said it, Mr. Moan. Leah Thomas underperformed as a male athlete and came into the space with women and dominated. And that
Yeah.
is because of the physical differences in Leah Thomas's body. Live your
Hmm.
life how you want to, honey. Be who you want to be. But at my liberties end, Ted and Mr. Floyd, where yours begin.
Hmm.
And that's just the reality.
Yeah,
And that's it.
yeah, and so my closing is, you know, LGBTQ and whatever the other. I don't care. Do live your life
Do
the way
you?
you want to be. I mean, I don't care. Or you want to have a pride fest. I don't care. Yeah, I won't go, but that's my personal. But
Mm-hmm.
live your life. But if you're a biological male, you should not be in elementary and high school and college sports. parts. That's just my
And you should
personal.
not, you should
Again,
also not be voted woman of the year.
no, exactly. Yeah.
Mr. Floyd, what you want to leave us with?
There's so much good in the worst of us, and so much bad in the best of us, that all of us should just sit down and listen to the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And on that note, that's the Gritty in the City and the Word on the Curb. We have everything linked on our Facebook page. So if you're listening to us, check us out on Facebook at Upzone, and you can find all of the links to all of the videos that we've discussed. We want you to, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, follow the whole 9 yards. Make sure that you are telling a friend and telling a friend. And if you're listening to us or you want to listen to us, you can find the Upzone podcast wherever you listen to your major podcast. So we enjoy being able to come to you, and we will see you all next week.
Mm.
And I'm going to turn my camera off. Love y'all. Mean it.
Yep.